What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Pro Wrestling Wire Radio. We have a very special guest here today, and Scott Rogers of the Huge Pop Wrestling Podcast.
Yes, sir.
Now, Scott and I have been friends for a number of years. We've been talking about going on each other's shows, and now today it is finally happening. Scott, welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm doing great, man. You're right. We've been trying to do this for several years, and it's just like nobody's schedule works together. And it's just so finally, Rick reached out to me last week and asked me to be on the show, and I appreciate the opportunity to come on your show and share what Huge Pop Wrestling Podcast is about and what wrestling is like in my world. So, thank you, Rick.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
So I've been doing this a number of years, and I think we started roughly around the same time, creating digital content, YouTube and stuff like that. And that's how I think we discovered each other, is coming across and commenting on each other's posts and stuff like that. And
Yeah.
of course, and then I think you started your YouTube and or excuse me, your podcast roughly around the same time. I might have done it maybe a few months longer than that. I'm not sure.
I think so. I think
yeah.
I remember watching you and the group of guys on Facebook several times, and thought that was pretty interesting what you guys were doing, and kind of laughed at some stuff, but it was pretty cool, which got me interested in, hey, I want to do this too. So, man, yeah. So I guess I would say, Rick, you inspired me, man.
Well, thank you. I don't get to hear that often. So let's say, like, so basically I started doing stuff on YouTube, stuff like unboxings and stuff like that, because me and you were both collectors.
Yeah.
Of course, during COVID, which was a pretty rough time, we were, just collecting stuff because there was nothing to do. I started working from home, and then I just started buying things online and getting things in the mail. And I think that you had the collector dad YouTube channel. Do you still use that channel?
No, well, yes and no. I converted it to the Huge Pop Wrestling Podcast channel. So, but
Okay.
to touch on that, absolutely correct, Rick. I think we started together as pro wrestling tees or the wrestling crate and
Yeah.
all those things, and we would share, hey, look what we got. Did we get a chase? Then we got to the point, what are we going to do with all this stuff? And
I started selling some of it at the conventions and shows and stuff like that, because I'm just like, a lot of that stuff, like, what's it been, 5, 6 years later, that I'm just not interested in keeping any of it at all. So it's like a lot of those times they give you just, I mean, to me, it's not worth anything. It's kind of garbage in a way. Not out, just to me. I'm not saying that. I know other people will probably like a lot of the stuff that's available through there. So
yeah. And one thing I found, either you're lucky or not, because there's a lot of those guys out there that unbox their stuff and they sell it on eBay, and they flip the box. That was probably my goal at first. But then, I'll be honest with you, with my real job as a foster parent, trying to handle 8 kids, I don't have time to take pictures of stuff and put it on put it on eBay. So, I mean, I don't know, but I'm just being, honest. So I don't do those anymore. I got a closet full of 40 shirts, probably. I mean, but
so
yeah.
get this, I cleaned out my closet last summer. Okay. So, and during that time, I just told a friend to come over. I said, I put a bunch of bags of t-shirts together. And in that time during COVID, and then I was moving into this new home, et cetera, I had acquired close to 300 t-shirts, just purchasing stuff every week between Pro Wrestling Tees, the crates. Pro Wrestling Loot was one that I subscribed to for a while. And then High Spots. High Spots had a box for a while too. And then I really liked theirs because they would just pull out like some random stuff sometimes that they had sitting in their warehouse, it seemed.
Yeah.
And then there was there was, what was I doing? There was nothing. Like, I'd always buy mystery packs of t-shirts. Oh, it's 10 shirts for $20 on clearance at High Spots or what have you. So I had amassed these like so many damn t-shirts, and I'm like, I don't even know what to do with all these. I don't wear half of them. I just wear the ones I really, really like. I mean, I wore most of them at some point, but then at the same time, I'm just like, dude, to my buddy, I said, if you want to come by and pick these up. If not, they're gonna end up at the Goodwill tomorrow."
Yep.
And he came up and picked 3 garbage bags of t-shirts up from my house the
Uh,
next morning.
I'm
So,
about to do that to mine, man. I got several indie wrestlers I follow. One guy being Top Top Charlie from
yep.
Orlando. And then I have another guy, Sean, yeah, I'm butchering his name.
Sean
Uh
Cruz. Sean
yeah,
Cruz.
Sean Cruz. I got his
Yeah.
um the FD or whatever, the hand signal of the industry. So I really didn't realize what that was about. And then my wife and my son told me what that uh hand gesture is. And I did say I won't say it on this radio station what it's about, but I have to be careful, select be around select group of people that I wear that shirt around. So
Oh, hang
I
on.
can't wear it to the office. So
Yeah, Sean Cruz. I ordered one of his shirts shortly after he had appeared on this show, and I saw that he got injured, right? And
yeah.
so I decided that it's like he was put it out there that looking for a few bucks or whatever, to help him with the injury and stuff, like cost the injury and stuff like that. I would have bought it anyways because I had a blast when he was on the show, and I thought he was awesome, an awesome guest, and he's a really cool dude. So we keep in touch still ever since he's been on this show. He was a great guest, I thought.
Absolutely, man. He was a phenomenal guest, and a little bit, you find guys like that, like Cha Cha Charlie and stuff, and I don't mind buying their T-shirt because I know that's how they make their money. Let's be honest, indie wrestling, everybody thinks indie wrestling is glorified superstars, but the problem is, I don't think everybody knows that what they have to go through. They have to either fly, drive, hotels, blah blah blah. And if I can help a dude out and pay $30 for a T-shirt, if he wants to come on the show for $30, I'm all down for that. I've had some indie guys. I'll even throw a name out there if that's okay. Matt Cardona. He wants $500 to have him on my show. And I said, absolutely not. I don't need Matt Cardona on my show for $500. So I mean, hope that's okay to say, but you know, I like my idea, my reasoning for doing the podcast is to give the indie wrestling wrestlers and promotions the platform to share their stories, and that's why I started the podcast. To be honest,
Yeah, I've had people try to charge me extraordinary amount of money, and I'd just be like, "I'm sorry, I don't pay necessarily. I don't pay because I'm here to promote you and and what your mission and my mission is to help get your name out there.
yeah.
And if I really like you, I'm going to have you on again. And I've gotten lucky and have dealt with guys like Matt Classic, Matt Carter from AIWF, who throws a
Mm-hmm.
lot of guys my way, and I think that he throws a lot of guys your way as well.
Yeah, I'm 100%.
Yeah, and he's a great guy, and every time he'll hit me up. He's like, "Hey, can you have this guy on your show?" And most of the time, I end up just like Sean Cruz, man. Sean Cruz, it ended up being like it ends up being a really damn good podcast and then a really good show.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
So
absolutely, 100%. So I've been blessed with guys like Sean Cruz. Henry Godwin's coming on the show in September 3rd, actually. So I'm looking forward to that one. That's gonna be fun. But no, I've had a blast dealing with guys from New York, Connecticut, um, August Artois from New York. If you
yeah.
want a fast paced talker, he's it. But he was fun. Not he's a little bit risky, but I've had guys like that on it. I've had the opportunity to have Francisco Chiazzo on the show too. Bless his heart. Rest in peace, my friend. But
who,
that was a good podcast.
who would you say was your favorite guest since starting the show?
Favorite guest is, I would have to say, um the funnest one was Ken Anderson. That was fun because it was very interesting. And at the end, of course, there was the Anderson off where my brother and Ken Anderson did the entrance thing, and that was pretty fun. But I would say probably uh Francisco Chiazza.
Mhm.
Um, I couldn't pronounce his name, and he came at me like a gangster, and then he goes, "No, just kidding, bro. You're good." And he was just so chill, man. He was just like we just talked about wrestling and about WWN. I think that's where he's at, where he was, you know, and it was fun. I like that. Um, Andrew Anderson, that guy, that was fun. Of course, we talked about a lot about Kevin Sullivan and Brutus the Barber Beefcake and all those guys, and that was a blast. That was fun too. So I've been blessed with connections for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, and as you stated, Kevin Sullivan just recently passed last week.
Yeah,
So rest in peace to the legend Kevin Sullivan, the Prince of Darkness. So I grew
absolutely.
up watching him and the NWA in Florida,
Yep,
and of course WCW. And the guy was absolutely he's a legend for a reason. He was
100,
great.
100%. Yeah, 100%. Wouldn't
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
So
So yeah, so let's talk about your wrestling interest. How did you get interested in? How old are you?
I'm
You're
50,
about
54. Yeah, I'm 54. Um,
oh, geez, you're not that much older, but you're older than I thought.
I was the kid, man, that was jealous because my family didn't have the gigantic disc TV that they could pirate the WrestleMania 1, 2. I had a friend that would telling me all about it when they got to school the next day. And I was so mad because, of course, we didn't have dirt sheets back then, right? We just either you watched it or you didn't, you know. And so I grew
Yeah,
up watching a lot of Saturday Night's Main Event, you know, and so that's how I got my good wrestling was Saturday Night's Main Event. And then for some reason, man, you grow older, you have responsibilities, and for me, it died off for after probably WrestleMania, I don't know, 10. I died
yeah,
off, you know, and I lost interest. And I just was flipping through channels. We were in Indiana. My wife and I were in Indiana, Noblesville, Indiana, and I was flipping through channels, and I got to see Hulk Hogan come down at Daytona Beach at Bash at the Beach in his red outfit, and that's when Macho Man was laying there on the ground, and you know, the NWO guys were there, Scott Hall, and they were Kevin Nash, and Hogan gets in. Everybody thought he was gonna save Macho Man. Then he took that leg and dropped that big leg on top of Macho Man, and I was hooked, bro. I was like, I have to start watching WCW, you know, and I watched WCW, and that began the WWE and WCW wars, you know, and all that stuff. And I've been ever since then. I've been a wrestling fan.
yeah.
But I will say this: not until 2 years ago, last month or this month, 2 years ago, I got my first taste of independent wrestling, and I went to Panama City Beach, which is about 45 minute, an hour and a half, hour and 15 minute drive to Panama City Beach to Extreme Impact Wrestling XIW, where they can see Damian Wayne, John Saxton, Adrian Whisper, Vordell Walker, Jackson Slade, Bubba Shaddix, Cornelius Pepperbottom, um, yeah, Tiger King, you know, and all those guys, and seeing that right in your face, like two rows from you, and what they go through, and see what they're just pouring it out on the line, and they get beat up, right? And I got a chair behind me that they all signed for me, and it was pretty cool. That was my first experience with independent wrestling, and man, I'm hooked. I'd rather watch independent wrestling all day long than Monday Night Raw, SmackDown. You know,
Right.
thankfully we had a great SummerSlam. I thought it was great. But finally, we have a
I
good.
I thought it was a phenomenal show, with the
Absolutely,
exception of the jelly roll bullshit. But which I thought was just corny. 'Cause, every time they have to throw in the celebrity
yeah,
crap in the middle.
100%.
Yeah, and it's just there. I don't think that's ever going to go away. But I thought it was a really good show otherwise, and I was really like, surprised that it was a good show. There's been pretty good shows in the past, but this beginning to end, with the exception of that one little bit, which was what 3 minutes long, I
Yeah,
enjoyed the show beginning to end.
yeah. No, it was a good show. But back to the XIW. You know, they have a event August 17th. I think is that this weekend, this Saturday, August 17th.
Yep.
In Panama City Beach, and I'll be doing a live podcast from the arena. So I'll be there for 4 hours doing. I'll be there from 1 to whenever it's over. There's meet and greets. There's gonna be some interviews going on. So that's where Huge Pop will be this Saturday. Will be live from XIW Extreme Impact Wrestling. So check it
So
out.
while you're mentioning that, why don't you tell people where they if you're going to be streaming live from the event?
I will be streaming live from at Huge Pop Wrestling on YouTube, at Huge Pop Wrestling Podcast on Facebook. That's where I go. I sometimes dab in Twitch, but not really. I'm basically YouTube and Facebook right at this point in time. So
Yeah, Twitch is it's a bitch,
it is. I
for
know.
lack of a better term.
I've been sitting there with 151 followers for 3 years, and I'm like, no, I can do this anymore. Why? Why waste my time?
Yeah, well, I'll tell you, you have more than me because I've been trying for years, and I try to, share the Twitch and all that stuff, and it just doesn't seem to grow. And I think it's just mostly for gamers and stuff like that. And there's other people that I used to be able to watch, like AAA used to, the Lucha company, they used to stream their events on there, so I used to watch it. And I think New Japan, uh, when they were in California one year, and I'm going back like, geez, 6 or 7 years, maybe even
Yeah,
longer. Like they streamed a live event from there. So it's just like it's just wild. Like I don't think that there's much wrestling content on there anymore. I could be wrong, but I don't really waste a lot of time on it anymore because I don't get any like views really. Once in a while, maybe there's one person tuning in, but
right.
it's just not worth it to me, I think. But
No,
yeah.
exactly. And I think I got to throw another one out there. It was you were on the podcast when I had Chase Bennett on the podcast, and I am now going to check out maybe put my stuff on Rumble.
Yeah.
I got the Rumble app on my Roku TV. I watched some of that stuff. And I'm debating whether or not what I want to do with that. So
It's
you
not
know,
a bad to try. I've tried it out. I have a few episodes up there,
yeah,
and stuff like that. So it's a pretty decent platform from what I understand. It's just
right.
it's the hard part of all these platforms is getting the views, getting people to tune in. You know what I mean? Because there's so many platforms these days. It's like, what does everybody have? You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
What is the consumer's preferred app to watch or listen to this stuff? It's like Apple and Spotify. We're on Apple and Spotify, and it's just like, I upload both the links to every show. It's like every Thursday. Okay, so the show airs Wednesday nights on Rock Radio Live. So Thursday, there's a podcast version of the show. And it's like, it goes up immediately to Apple and Spotify in the morning. And it's just like, what are people listening to? But I try to pay, and I think my biggest uh fault is that I pay attention to the numbers, and it's like I start looking at the analytics, like which one should we focus on the most, because it's hard. It's
It is.
hard to push your product in a market, especially professional wrestling. There's something like over 500 wrestling podcasts out there these
Yeah.
days. So it's really hard to just keep pushing your product out there these days when there's so many damn podcasts out there.
Yeah, 100%. And the number thing you mentioned that it's funny you mentioned that because that was one of my issues up to probably about a month ago.
Mhm.
And I was really in like this really bad place of whether I want to keep on doing this or not. And so my wife and I were talking, and she's like, "You need to start back to where you were." All I cared about was putting content out because I do this mainly because of self-care. This is my self-care part of the day. I
Right.
don't I sit in front of a microphone talking to people, and that's my self-care moment. And it helps a lot. And I had to go back to the roots, right? I had to go back and not worry about the content, the
The
numbers.
numbers. Right.
Worry about putting out good content because quality is better than quantity for me.
Right.
I want to give these guys, like, again, like I said, the reason because of the podcast started the same time I started watching independent wrestling. And my thing is I want to give independent wrestlers and their promotions the platform, So I now I'm back to the basics. I don't care if I have 5 people watching, 20 people watching, whatever. I'm taking care of myself and I'm giving the people platforms to share their stories. And if people watch it, great. If people don't, I'm not going to die over that. So
Sitting in front of the microphone talking about wrestling probably an hour and 20 minutes per day.
for that.
And there's nothing wrong with that. You know what I mean? It's you mentioned that you have 8 foster kids that you're
Absolutely.
in you care for. So I can imagine that's chaotic. I got 5 of my own kids and then 3 step kids. So
Yeah.
I know that it is a crazy, crazy life. And then, my father's a little bit older and he lives with us. So, I know it's a chaotic, chaotic life. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Absolutely, man.
Yeah.
So Rick,
Yes, sir.
what's your favorite interview so far?
My favorite interview, man, sometimes I hang up on these things. I'm like, damn, that was a great interview. You know what I mean? And I absolutely love certain guests that I had. Like the first interview I ever did for this show was Barry Horowitz. And I thought it was a phenomenal show. It was fun. I remember the setup for that show. It's like he goes, I just want to make sure you're legit because I've been on podcasts before and they weren't talking, they would talk about with the other guests and then they were kind of ignoring me, et cetera, et cetera. He's like, I want to call you on the phone and talk to you first. And as soon as my phone rang and it said, whatever, Florida, wherever he lives. And I knew it was him. I knew his voice, you know what I mean, from all those years. And I was like, oh, damn, Barry Horowitz is on my phone right now. Right. And he
Yeah.
asked me where I was from. And I said, I'm from New Haven, Connecticut. I used to go to the New Haven Coliseum. And I think, boom, that's where I got him is because he wrestled in the New Haven Coliseum plenty of times. I saw him there many, many times over the years. And immediately he just went into having a conversation about the New Haven Coliseum and all this other stuff. And I think that's where I lured him in. You know what I mean? And he's just
Yeah.
like, you know what, you're great. He goes, we'll set this up for, a week or so from now. And yeah, I got to tell you, that was one of my it was my first interview, but it was also a very fun interview. I've done like a million, well, not a million, but I've done like a ton of others. I had current Raw GM, or excuse me, SmackDown GM Nick Aldis on, before he went to WWE. NXT announcer Blake Howard was on the show beforehand when he might have been just starting out with MLW at the time.
Hmm.
I had there's just a million guys. Like I've had like NWA legend Gene Ligon on, who was just to me, we sat there and had a 4 hour conversation, which 2 hours only made it to the podcast because we talked for an hour beforehand and an hour after we talked. And then once we got done talking, we were talking about health and all this other stuff and dieting and all this other stuff. And he was one of the most interesting, nicest human beings I've ever met. Seriously. And
Nice.
it's hard to choose who really. I'd have
Yeah.
to rank like Sean Cruz. Like, if an interview goes really well and he is talking very, and I don't have to basically my job is to ask the question. So if I don't have to do much outside of asking the questions, and this guy gets to tell his story very well, like Sean Cruz, and it was an awesome. Like I've had some experiences that weren't great. I don't want to make anybody look bad. I've had some at like 20 minutes. I'm like, Jesus, how much longer is this going to go? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Yeah.
but if I can get an hour with ease, Bobby Blaze is one that I just did. Smoky Mountain, former Smoky Mountain heavyweight champion. And, you know, we went an hour and 40 minutes, I believe it was. And that dude, all I had to do was mention one thing and he would go on for 10, 15 minutes talking about the subject. And he had great stories about Jim Cornette. All any question I asked, he had really great stories about. So that right now I'd have to say ranks very high on my list.
Yeah. No, yeah, absolutely. And you do get that feeling, sometimes when's this gonna stop? When are we gonna can we just stop it? But you don't want to be rude, you want to be respectful. And yeah, I've had that a couple
Right.
times, and but it takes a lot of work, man. It takes it's not something you do the day before the interview. You work on it because I work on a promo package after they send me a promo, and I put together an announcement package, blah blah blah, and then you take notes, and so you don't want to look unprepared,
Yeah, I do a lot of research beforehand. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
I'm on Wikipedia. I'm on Cage Match. I'm searching for articles and stuff like
Yeah.
that. One of my favorite articles, or one of my favorite interviews, I will say this. So now that had a second to think about it, is I had a buddy that passed away. Okay. He was a independent wrestler that he died, I think it's had to be 3 years ago. He was an independent wrestler around here. And we you know, I know he was hospitalized for a little while. We had a lot in common outside of pro wrestling. He was, a punk rock guy, singer in a punk rock band as well. I was really into punk rock, still am. And the thing is, like, I had him on, we chatted, we would always talk. And then a few months later, I found out while I was recording another podcast, hyping a show that was coming up in a few days that he was supposed to be on, that the person that I was sitting across from talking, his phone just kept blowing up that he had actually passed away. We don't know. So Big Jim Anderson, rest in peace. You're one of the best. You're one of the good guys. And he was always there anytime you walked into a room.
Mhm.
I'd walk into the building, he'd have a huge smile and a hug and be shaking my hand. He was one of the best people I ever met in professional wrestling. And, I've been doing this thing, not the podcasting, but I've been around for about a good 6 or 7 years doing involved in professional wrestling. So that's got to be my favorite interview based on all that information I told you, because he is sorely missed around here.
Absolutely, yeah. I was thinking about one of my favorite connections I've had is Herb Simmons from SICW over in St. Louis.
Great guy.
Great guy. I had the opportunity to talk to Barbara Goodish with her on the podcast. That was a very fun interview. We learned about Barbara's husband. You know, uh, it was just an awesome interview. That I would never forget. Herb's a great guy. Herb will call me up. And one time, one of the best things that ever happened to me doing this podcast, I was doing this show with one of the guys from SICW, and I had another kid on there. He wanted to come and be part of it, and as a co-host. So I let him be on there. I didn't know what this kid was about, and Herb calls me and texts me, says, "Call me after that, after it's over." I said, "Okay." So I called him after it was over. I think it was the interview with Big Texan, I think, which is a good guy.
Okay. Yeah. Yep.
And he goes, everybody in the locker room was watching this video, this podcast, and everybody said, "You don't need anybody else to be a co-host because you do a damn good job." And to hear that from him, a
Yeah.
promoter, I'm like, okay, all right. So I never had that kid on the show again because but no, just to hear stuff from Herb Simmons, even Adrian whispered, he has my back. He critiques my stuff, and he's honest with me. He's just he's an old cracker that isn't afraid to say anything about anybody, and so Adrian Whisper, he every week he'll tell me about what I should tweak and what I shouldn't, or he'll just say everything was great. So having people that like that in my back pocket or on my team
Yeah.
makes you feel really good, and it helps you out. So I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I can get messages sometimes from, I'm close with the guys at Paradise Alley Pro Wrestling, which is
Yeah.
run by Mario Mancini and Paul Roma, two former WWE talents. And, sometimes I used to air on Monday nights, you know what I mean? So
Mhm.
then sometimes I'd get messages saying, "Hey, we're all watching your show." And I'm just like, Monday nights is like their main class. You know what I mean? For all the rookies and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So it's just like they're sitting there watching, like the time I interviewed Jacques Rougeau, and it was just like, wow, like this is like they're sitting there, and then it's just like, and then they picked out something, they would pick out a piece of the interview I did and say, like, this made sense here, and these got, blah blah blah. So and they would teach that to the students, you know what I mean, which to me that
Yeah.
sounded, to me that was very important, you know what I mean.
100%. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. So what else, Scott? What else you got?
So I know you're more of an indie guy. So let me ask this question. So are you still
Sure.
not as big on the WWE as you were about 6 months ago? Because they're there for a while. Rick was a hater. You still
I
hating?
I wouldn't say I'm hating. I watch, like I said, I watch SummerSlam. I don't tune in Mondays and Fridays and tune in and as a diehard. If I'm literally sitting there. Now, I've been out of work for about a month because I had that surgery.
Yeah.
So I'm just kind of like on the Monday night. It's funny because I had that surgery on a Monday afternoon. So I was like, I'm in the hospital. What the hell am I going to do? So I was like, I'll watch Monday Night Raw. But of course, I never got to watch it because I started it because it got all this anesthesia and all this other crap. I passed out within minutes of it starting, and I don't recall any of it. So, but I do try to watch Mondays and Fridays if I have, if I'm available, I have nothing else to do. I record them all, and sometimes I'll just sit there and fast forward it. I don't hate the product, you know what I mean? It's just I grew up on, but I was more of an NWA WCW guy growing up.
Yeah.
Um, Once I discovered those outside of WWF, you know what I mean? Um, I think that Hunter is doing a terrific job as to what he's doing in
Right.
WWF and converting it into a different product. There's more professional wrestling based product than it was a year ago, 2 years ago. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? It's less entertainment or less sports entertainment. So I'm enjoying it. There's a lot of, and I never discounted the talent. I always thought that the talent was very good, and they were very good at what they did. You know what I mean? So it was just a lot of the storylines and ridiculousness that just made me cringe every time I turned it on. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No,
So,
I
and I'm
get it. Yeah.
yeah. So, and I gotta say now it's like the same thing with AEW. I haven't watched AEW in almost 2 years, to be honest with you, maybe a year and a half. With the exception of the Forbidden Door, I call it like part of it. So there's just nothing there that interests me. I mean, y'all can call me a WWE mark or what have you, or indie mark, but it's just there's got to be something there for me to be interested in order to
Right.
tune in.
Right.
It has nothing to do with being a mark or hating a company or what have you. Because the AEW roster is an amazing roster. Look at all
Yeah.
those guys that are there. It's just the booking sucks terribly. It's just,
Mhm.
it's very hard to sit through. But I'll
Right.
make this announcement now. I'm going to make an announcement now. All in is what, August 25th? Is that
Right.
true? Is
Yes.
that
Yeah, I think
the date?
so.
Okay. So, all right. So I will be watching All In, and they're going to get a special guest host, okay, as part of the show. Showtime Marcel Williams, who was my former co host of the show, will be returning to the show, and we will be talking about AEW All In. So
Nice.
he
Yeah.
hit me up about he hit me up about this. I'm sure you remember when he was on the show.
Absolutely.
He hit me up, and I actually saw him this past Saturday. He hit me up and said that he wanted to do a show and this and that. And I said, dude, you are always welcome here. So I'm happy to have him back, coming back uh, at the end of the month.
Yeah. No, I am the same boat as you are. As far I don't think I've watched AEW in a long time. Not that they don't have great talent, because they have great talent. It's
Right.
just I think Tony Khan plays with little action figures and go, okay, which one's going to do this? And
Right.
he's not a booker by any means. Let's
No,
lay it there.
he's just throwing things together. One of
Right.
the things that I can't stand is like when you know, everybody I love professional wrestling. I like the professional wrestling, the wrestling part of it. It's guys like Darby Allen that scare the shit out of me. I don't, he's like a glorified stunt man. That kid's gonna be crippled if he keeps doing some of the stuff that he does.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I think right now WWE is the hottest thing going in wrestling as far as their storylines and their moments. And I love it. To be honest, I tune in Monday and Friday. Why? Because I want to see what happens to Wyatt Six, the Judgment Day, the story. I could care less of what happens in the backstage with whoever it is, but the storylines keeps me going. But I will say this: I'm more of an indie mark than I am a WWE, stuff like that. I do have promotions that I love. I do follow as DCCW over Jacksonville, USWA up in Georgia. They're decent people. I met these guys at conventions, so I'll just talk about that real quick. I had my first taste of conventions. I went to the River City WrestleCon in St. Augustine, Florida, in June, and I didn't know what to expect. To be honest with you, I paid for a booth, a table. I had Austin Aries as a guest at my table. That was good, you know, and I was right there by the ring where I got to see a lot of independent wrestling. So I got to see Ray Fury, he was there. Cheese
Great
Man,
wrestler.
the cheese head, the cheese guy, he's TJ Cheese, he
Yep.
was there. Cha Cha Charlie was there. A whole bunch of guys were there, you know. Sean Alexander, I think is his name. I think that's
Uh,
what his name. Anyways, they're all there. You know, it was fun. And the big thing is, I paid. I'll be honest. I paid 200 and no $150 to meet Sting and get an autograph. You know, and get my picture taken with him. That took 4 hours.
Jesus.
That was 4 hours I wish I had back. I love Sting. He's my favorite wrestler of all time. I'm not discrediting that opportunity. I just didn't think it needed to be
Right.
4 hours long. I had more fun, more meaningful interactions with Matt Riddle. I mean, I sat with that boy as he's eating his. I mean, okay, I'm not. He's eating this chocolate bar, and I know what it is, right? Um, just pounding it away, and he's just a genuinely happy guy, you know. And so
Yeah.
we did a little interview with him, and that was pretty cool. But I got to sit and talk with Jimmy Hart for 10 minutes about SICW, about Herb Simmons, about what he's doing and stuff like that, and what Jimmy Hart's doing, you know, and stuff like that. And Tatanka and his wife, great people. And just to sit there and listen to them and have that 5 or 10 minute conversation by far trumped standing in line for 4 hours. I mean, I got the man's
That's awesome.
signature.
Yeah.
I got it, you know, but uh, for me as a fan, I those will never. I mean, for instance, Tatanka, we're down at the lobby of the hotel room. It was Tatanka's birthday. I was standing next to the stationary statue Macho Man, Joe Abel, I think his last name is. He
Right.
does gold statues. Anyways, just say he was there's here comes Tatanka. It's his birthday, and I had on my hand. I said, "Happy birthday, Tatanka!" Massive hands, shook my hand, and his wife goes, "I'm his wife." You know, I'll never forget that. It's just stuff like that. Abdullah Butcher, he was down there eating dinner with us. Just those moments that you get that you'll never forget. To me, is more important than a signature than anything. I don't have any of those guys that I just mentioned. The signature, never. I don't have any of that.
Yeah.
But I'll never forget those
Yeah.
moments. You know, and as for me as a fan, you can't take that away. You know, and matter
Yeah.
of fact, I'm signing up for next year's WrestleCon, so I'm going back because it was just a fun time.
That's awesome. It reminds me of the first time I did the New England Fan Fest. It's they had the Hall of Fame the night before, so I was in the Hall of Fame and I got to see, Barry Horowitz was into the New England Hall of Fame. Former WWF ring announcer Mike McGurk, she was getting inducted, and afterwards, I'm going up to I'm in the lobby near the desk, trying to, they have the little snack area, so I was going to grab some snacks and bring up to the room. My wife didn't come down to the Hall of Fame area, so I'm just standing there, and Mike McGurk is standing in front of me, and I just start talking to her, and she was like the sweetest lady. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? She was awesome. And then it just the next morning I'm coming down to move my car to pull it around so I can load up my table. Come down and Mr. Hughes, Curtis Hughes, excuse me. I got the last name wrong. Jesus, I knew I said that wrong. Mr. Hughes was standing at the counter checking into the hotel, coming into the for the convention, and he comes up to me asking directions to find a place to eat breakfast before the convention starts. So I was like, I'm walking him through the hotel. I'm like, man. And then Devon Dudley is walking by me and he's like, hey, how are you? And I'm just walking around the convention. Every so often I'd leave my table just because I'm like, whatever. My buddy is there and my wife was there. It's like, I'm just gonna walk away, whatever, just kind of look around at the other merchandise and this and that. And Victoria was there and she just started talking to me. And then she was just like, let's take a picture. I'm like, okay. It was just a fun experience being around all those it's a fun experience being around wrestling like that to that
Yeah.
extent. You know what I mean? So it's a lot of fun. This old merchandise or collectible merchandise. I'm just looking at it. And like I said, I don't really buy much anymore, but autographs anymore. So I usually just like my whole thing is like getting a picture with somebody because it's like autographs don't do anything for me. I'll get a
Right.
picture with somebody. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Like I just, so it's not a big deal, but those conventions are very exciting. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Way more exciting than doing, whatever else.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah.
My just recently, Samu, he lives in Pensacola, in Wild Samoans, and he was selling a chair, 30th anniversary Raw chair on Marketplace, and I was like, I've seen it, and I've seen at the conventions, chairs were like $400. Well,
Jeez.
this guy had a chair for 150, and I'm like, okay. I said, could you bring it down to 100 and sign it for me? And he gave me the thumbs up, and I met him at a park, and I got the chair from him, and that led into a conversation about him coming on the show in September. Well, he's supposed to come in on August, but then Afa, his father, is having some some health problems. They flew the family into
Right.
Pensacola, et cetera, et cetera. Pray for him all the time. Anyways, we're going to set up something for September, and he has a couple big announcements that he's been talking to me about, but I can't share. I wish I could, but I can't. But it's
You don't
going to be
want
exciting.
the breaking news. You don't want
Yeah,
the
I
breaking
can't.
news here.
No, because I can't, because if it doesn't happen, then people will be pissed. So,
Yeah.
but no, I just so that interaction is fun, and I just have been having a blast, man. I've been, going back to where I was, talking, take my time, quantity over quality. I thought I had to have a show every night. That gets exhausting, and then
Well, I,
we did that
I
WSBN TV. That became, I don't want to talk bad about it, but that became exhausting.
well,
Um,
it's because it's just a tank. It's like a shit tank in a way. No offense to the owner, you know what I mean? It's just that he's looking for content. We're not getting anything out of it. There's not any views going in there whatsoever. It's like you don't know what your numbers are. You're not getting any
right,
feedback on what your numbers are. They just sign you up for a channel and just stream your stuff, as opposed to me and you, having one long channel. They just give everybody their channel themselves, and it's just, to me, it just didn't make a lot of sense after about 2 months of doing it, and it got tiring. And then,
right,
I walked away from this with anything bad about the guy. I've spoken to him on the phone. He wanted to start a wrestling streaming network, but then it's just, I have, some connections that I could definitely be involved with it, but I can't, I don't have the time or money to invest in starting a product like that, in which, ultimately that's what he wanted to get into. And I
right.
think that you were hit up roughly about it as well, if I remember
Yeah,
correctly.
I did. And then I started looking. I'm like, okay, because I'm like you. I'm not getting anything out of it. No disrespect to WSBN TV. The guy's a great guy, But
Right.
I want to
Yeah.
see,
Yeah.
revenue or something. I wasn't getting it, And then I began looking into what would happen. How could I even start a Roku channel myself? And
Right.
you can, but it's $100 a month to do it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I don't have that extra $100, Or
Nope.
then I wrote an email and to the guy about it, and there's so much you have to do, and I just don't have the time. And it's just, and I was talking to my wife again. And once again, you bring it back to the roots, right? Why am I doing this? I'm doing this because I needed a hobby. Why,
Yes.
okay, a hobby. Then it turned into self care, right? Because that's what a hobby should do. It should be self care. I
Right.
don't want my self care hobby to be another job, right? Because if it's another job, it's not fun. And that's where I got about 3 months, 2 months ago. It became not fun because I thought I had to have content. You know what I'm saying? And I'm
Yeah.
not that guy. I have a regular shoot job. I do have I have to make a living. I have to pay my bills. Like I can't sit behind a
Yeah.
microphone all day long. And
Yeah.
I'm happy for that. I'm happy I don't have that. It's not this big gigantic job. You know what I'm saying? I am ecstatic where Huge Pop Wrestling Podcast is. Where my brother and I think I have four guys that help co-host throughout the evening time. Because my brother Matt, he works in the morning. He has to be at work at 4 a.m, so he can't stay up. So
Right.
so he's going to be launching his morning show, his afternoon show. I think we're going to be Wednesday and Friday. Friday will be a sports show. We'll be talking about NFL and NCAA football. We're trying to get, it's going to be Huge Pop Wrestling entertainment, sports and entertainment. So, it'll still be the podcast, but it's going to be some sports in there as well. And so he's going to start up, but I have a group of 4 other guys, Rico, George, Bryson, and Cody. We all do it, and we have fun, and that's the thing. If I stop having fun, I might as well stop doing it, right?
Yes.
And so one thing I do
And
that I don't see a lot of people doing. Last night was I call it Friday night fights, but last night was Sunday night. It's Warrior Wrestling Alliance out of Louisiana. There's a storyline that they got me involved in as the Potster podcast guy. So we had Brady Brown and Ruthless Devontae. Right, Potster, I'm not that guy, right? Wrong. But no, it got funny. I had 9 guys on my podcast last night, and it started with one question, and I thought I'd only be on it for 45 minutes. It took an hour and 45 minutes because
wow.
there was just a lot of storytelling going on. At the end of the show, they revealed that what's going to happen on the September 7th show. So
Right.
it was fun because it wasn't, hey, where'd you start wrestling? Hey, what was your best moment? Hey,
Yeah, yeah.
it was into it. You were part of the show. They were bantering back and forth. It was good. It was solid. So I loved it. So that's a part of Huge Pop Podcast that I don't see a lot of people doing, like Friday night face-offs. Face to face. If I have a promotion that's going to have an event on Saturday, that the week of that show, I bring 2 of the main event guys on, and we just talk. They talk trash, and
Yeah.
it's fun.
Yeah. It's like me when I work for Coliseum Pro Wrestling doing commentary. Next show, September 14th,
Yeah.
in West Haven, Connecticut. Make sure your asses are in our seats because it's going to be the last show for the rest of the year, from what I understand. So, make sure you asses are there. All right. So, a lot of times I'll do preview shows the week before, the Sunday before. Say it's
Mhm.
on a Friday or Saturday, the Sunday before. I have a preview show where I go live and I make sure that there's 4, 5, 6 guys that show in, like, hey, sign in at 10 minutes, 10 after, sign in at 8:30. And sometimes it kind of went chaotic because there'd be people that would just join at any given time, and it just kind of made it a huge clusterfuck.
Right.
So,
Absolutely. Yeah.
so I'm just like, I can't, so I'm like down. There'd be times where I'd have like technical difficulties. Have you had technical difficulties sitting where you are?
Okay. So yes, I have. Let me tell you a funny story. Okay. I use StreamYard now, and I won't ever change. StreamYard's my guy.
Really?
I think I pay $49 a month, but it's
I
worth it.
stopped using that because it's to you. Yeah, I think I stopped using that a few months ago because when I would do it, it just seems that I have like some connection issues. You know what I
No,
mean? Which is just, to me, I don't know if it's me, like where I am or what have you, because I'm kind of far out
right,
in the woods a little bit. And my office is in the basement where I do the podcast out of. So I don't know if the Wi-Fi is being having an issue because of that. I bet you if I was upstairs somewhere else in the house, I'd have a better
right,
connection. But
maybe.
yeah,
What I had problem with was um I had Zoom, but in order to record to YouTube, and because I love doing lives. I know you don't do a lot of lives, you do recordings.
right,
and
yeah,
and Zoom would work for recordings if I just chose that. But I do a lot. I like doing lives. I don't know why, but I just like doing my podcast live. And I
yeah,
tried to use Zoom, in order to put it to YouTube and Facebook, I had to use Streamlabs OBS.
yeah,
And to try to get Zoom to work and OBS to work at the same time, and get the pictures of the guests in in the spots they need to be.
right.
Funny story, Chris Wildcat Harris, great guy.
Yeah,
Um,
he was on our show 3 or 4 years ago. That was a show that I was not a part of for whatever reason, but it was on part of this show years and years ago. Yeah.
yeah, so I had him on, and first time I forgot to hit go live. 10 minutes in, I didn't hit go live, right? So we stopped, and all of a sudden something happened to the OBS or I hit a button, and then I couldn't get them going, and it was ridiculous. I got embarrassed. I'm sweating my ass off because I'm embarrassed, right? Oh, live radio, I don't care. I was embarrassed. I had this guy on who I thought was who I see as a legend of the business, right? And all of a sudden, I got my son's calling me on the phone. Dad, you got to do this. You got to do this. You got to do this. I'm like, dude, I'm getting so frustrated at the point. So I just like, Chris, can we just cancel this? And he goes, yeah, we'll just do it again. So I canceled it. Next time I had him on, I used StreamYard. I had no problem. So, but it was embarrassing, because you want to
Yes.
put out good content, and
Yes.
then when you look like a jackass, it's
Yeah.
embarrassing. So
Yeah. I've never actually had, I mean, had difficulty with since being StreamYard. A lot of times I'll upload it, you know what I mean, after recording it, so it'll be live. But record it going live, I just kind of stopped doing that because of too many connection issues and difficulties. And let's knock on wood that hopefully that won't happen again. So
yeah, no,
yeah,
absolutely.
yeah. So what else you got going on? We got a couple more minutes. So what else you got going on in the huge pop world? You just made a bunch of announcements. I hear that your brother Matt is making his return to the
Brother Matt's
platform.
making his return to the platform on Fridays. This Friday actually is the first Friday that he's coming back. So we're going to talk about NCAA football and NFL football, our predictions. He's more of this.
Okay.
He's more of a. He is a sports brain. I am not. I have my favorite teams, so we're going to be talking about that.
Right.
Um, I have a list of things that is going on as far as interviews go, because I do a lot of interviews, a lot of interviews. So first thing
Yeah.
I have is this Saturday I'll be at XIW Extreme Impact Wrestling for their event. I do have Henry Godwin, like I said, on September 3rd. I have Alex the Pug Portier on on September 23rd. Rick Allen, Sandy Beach on September 9th. Another WCW guy. And a New Japan guy, NWA, Steve Anthony, is on August 16th. I mentioned he was trained by Harley Race and the Armstrong brothers. I have TJ Cheese on the 19th. Pat Melitek, I am in the process of talking with him. He's a UFC fighter. So
Yep.
retired, and I'm the bit. So I'm working with DCCW, USWA, a lot of Florida promotions. I'm Tokyo Kahagis's group down in Orlando, and I'm getting CCW guys or an Orlando promotion. One of the big promotions are in Orlando is CCW.
Right.
So there's a couple promotions in the Panhandle, small promotions, like not big names all the time, but I'm working with those guys. Samu and LA Smooth. LA Smooth, funny story how he's coming on my podcast. My wife is a diehard Lita fan and diehard Lita fan and Trish Stratus. So they were both at the wrestle convention, and my wife wanted to go around the other side to get a picture of Lita because she was posing and all this stuff. And she bumped into LA Smooth, who was sitting at a table, one of the Samoans, LA would be Samu's brother. And she goes, "Excuse me." He goes, "Excuse you," or whatever he said, how he said it. And they had a conversation which set up him coming on in September as well.
Yeah.
Um, so I'm working on Samu and LA Smooth. They're gonna be on hopefully here in September. Yeah, but a lot of big name, not big names to big names to me, not to maybe anybody else. But again,
Yeah.
it's not about the big name, to be honest with you. It's about what I'm having fun with and what I need self care with. Tuesdays, check out and Huge Pop Wrestling Podcast on Tuesday nights where we go back over if there's a pay per view or Monday Night Raw. There's like again, it's me, Cody, Reek, George, and Bryson. So we all talk about that. We talk about Monday Night Raw. So that's the only kind of non-indie wrestling talk I have is on Tuesday nights. So if you like Tuesday night, if you like WWE talk, come on, join the show on Tuesday. But again, help us out, man. Help even Rick out as far as joining his social medias. But social medias here, big one is at Huge Pop Wrestling on YouTube and at Huge Pop Wrestling Podcast on Facebook, the business page. I hit
Sweet.
3K followers on the Huge Pop Wrestling Podcast Facebook page. We'll go from there. We'll see what happens, man.
Make sure you like and subscribe to the channel. Tune in to Huge Pop Wrestling Podcast. This guy puts out a lot of content, a lot of great content as well. And like I said, show your love and support for independent podcasting, because we're just the guys out here, and take care of us, man. Just like and subscribe, share the stuff, and get your friends to like and subscribe. We have a lot of fun doing this. Let's make it worth it, man.
Another guy I would like to take a moment to, he's helped me out. He's put my name up in Milwaukee, Illinois, Iowa area. Would be Johnny Cass. He's an indie wrestler. He's a gamer. His theme is he's a gamer guy, and he's, check him out. And another podcast is JB Wrestling Interviews. Check him out on Facebook. He does some indie wrestling up in Owan, Iowa with Rugged Pro. So yeah, and Rick, I thank you for having me on the show, man. I appreciate finally getting the opportunity to shoot the breeze about wrestling, man.
Hopefully it won't take another 5 years to get this you back on here. So
before you go, I know you got it. I know you probably have a schedule. So do you like how Roman Reigns came back? And are you excited for what's going to happen going forward?
It was expected. It was kind of predictable that he was coming back, the way they built up everything, and that the rumors were going around that he was coming back. It's the one thing about the main event, and WWE does this a lot, is they overbook their main events with interference after interference after interference. And that's the one thing that drives me crazy. So, when something happened, I don't remember what it was. I said, all right, I literally said Roman's next, literally. And all of a sudden this music hit, and then it came across the screen. That freaking crowd went absolutely insane. Do I like it? The one thing that, like I said, I don't like how they overbook everything, and then all of a sudden the big surprise is at the end. You know what I mean? So it's just like, chill with that, man. It's just mind-boggling to an extent, but that's old school Vince booking. Was it bad? I didn't mind it. He's coming. It was kind of, we knew that he was coming back as a baby face, and now he's gonna. What I'm expecting is bloodline versus bloodline. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
I think it's gonna be. What's that?
How much more time do we got?
Yeah, just about a minute. So.
All right. So again, one of the topics I touch on the Huge Pop Wrestling Podcast is brotherhood, and I say that to finish the show because I asked the question about brotherhood to the wrestlers, and they say how important it is to have brotherhood because they bounce things off each other, they travel with each other all the time. I'll say this, man, Rick. If I think about brotherhood, I think about you, people that support you, encourage you every day, and I appreciate the support and the push that you give me, my brother at Huge Pop Wrestling Podcast. That is brotherhood. You're not afraid to give me feedback, and if I'm acceptable to feedback, that we ought to be. So when I use the technicality of brotherhood, I really do mean it. In the podcast world, it's a thing. It's got to be a thing, or we all go away. You know what I'm saying? We'll never get better if we don't allow other people to critique us. And I thank you for all the encouragement. That's just true brotherhood. Thank you for having me on the show, man.
Absolutely. And one thing I want to touch on, and then we're going to get out of here, is that don't be afraid of the new guys that come in. There's enough room for everybody. I know that there's a lot of guys that have been doing this for 10, 20 years that every time they see new guys on the block, they just start treating them like crap. Be supportive of them. Give them a hand. 100%. Clap. I jump into Scott's chat and always comment and ask questions that's maybe Scott didn't think of, or what have you, or maybe I'm just throwing my opinion in there. Scott's had guys from my area in there, like Brother Greatness, up on his show. What was it, last year or early in the year, whichever. And I was, I knew a lot of the information about him, so I was just commenting and asking questions. So don't be afraid to show support to the other guys around the scene. Have a great night, everybody. We'll see you next week.